Hi and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is a TV review and I'll be having a look at the pilot episode of Sleepy Hollow. So if you're unfamiliar with the tale of Sleepy Hollow, it's actually quite a famous kind of ghost story, if you like, following the Headless Horseman. And this is a kind of modern retelling. And one of my sort of fears with this series was how they're going to stretch this over the course of a TV show, because I didn't really see how it could be anything more than just a film, really. And they have obviously changed up quite a lot of the kind of story here, and some of the decisions that they've made, which I'll come on to in a minute, I actually think do make sense to try and make it into maybe a TV series. I'm not sure, how long it would potentially run for without kind of running out of steam, but I think you can definitely get one or two series out of it. But we'll see. It basically starts off with the American Revolutionary War, and we're kind of introduced to Ichabod Crane, who was actually a kind of soldier at this point. And he sort of ends up fighting this kind of masked mercenary from kind of the other side. And he, something's not quite right about him. Ultimately, he looks very menacing and whatnot. And ultimately, he beheads him, but he himself is wounded. Cut to sort of modern times, and we basically have Ichabod Crane kind of wake up in a sort of some sort of type of cave, which looks to be some sort of like witchcraft sort of paraphernalia around him, and he kind of stumbles into the sort of modern world. At the same time, there's a beheading of a local sheriff played by Clancy Brown, and a kind of obviously a limited cameo, and which is witnessed by his female police partner, Lieutenant Mills. Anyway, these two inevitably cross paths, and they sort of find out that yes, there is a Headless Horseman. Ichabod Crane is brought into custody, and of course no one believes him. There's some quite amusing interplay, obviously, because he's essentially a man out of time at this point. And one of the kind of most amusing sort of exchanges I thought that they had was, obviously, this guy was surprised to sort of see both a female and a sort of black, because I'm lieutenant, which is what we call him in the UK, or lieutenant in the US, in obviously the police force. And that kind of takes it back a bit. So I'm kind of glad they addressed that, which obviously maybe a touchy subject, but obviously is going to be true for historical accuracy. Anyway, suffice to say, the Headless Horseman is on a kind of mission. We're not quite sure what it is at this point, but at least it looks to like there's a bigger world other than the Headless Horseman. And the difference is here is that the Headless Horseman is set up to be ultimately one of the riders of the apocalypse, ultimately death. And this is obviously a way that the series is going to try and run with it, which I think was a smart move to make, because I didn't see, if you sort of tell the traditional sort of Sleepy Hollow story, how it was going to really sort of stretch for a TV series. So, but it points to a larger world. We've got witchcraft. We're told that there's two factions of witchcraft, one for good, one for evil. Ultimately, if the Headless Horseman is one of the four horsemen, there's obviously three others that we may see pop up throughout this series. And there's also some kind of demonic entity which ultimately looks to be the power behind the Headless Horseman, but we kind of see in a kind of some sort of misty and sort of blurry visions. So it all points to a much larger supernatural world, and ultimately what the status quo is at the end of this sort of pilot is we have Mills and Ichabod Crane ultimately are trying to sort of figure out where to go, how to sort of prevent obviously the Headless Horseman from attaining his goals, and then ultimately they're sort of set up to be the ones that are destined to try and sort of stand between the Headless Horseman and his evil aims. I actually really enjoyed this. I had to be honest with you, I went into this series with some trepidation. Like I said, I didn't know if they would be able to stretch it out for a TV series. However, at the end of this pilot, I was thinking, yes, I definitely want to see this some more. I did have a couple of problems with it. They're relatively minor, I suppose, but nevertheless, a couple of problems. The first, I guess the more minor one, was that I thought maybe the police acted a little bit unprofessionally in this, and not like police would really react, especially Mills, I have to say, who I would imagine would be fired if this actually sort of played out like it did. But nevertheless, this is sort of TV land, so we had to kind of allow some sort of, suspension of disbelief and whatnot. But the other thing that kind of maybe bugged me a little bit more was there are certain things that seem a little bit convenient throughout the plot. I won't go too much into the sort of plot in case, obviously you haven't seen it. But certainly involving Clancy Brown's character and a few other things, it just seems to be, there are some sort of things that just seem a little bit too convenient just to sort of obviously get the sort of the plot on track. But that's really it. I thought you know, the aesthetics of the show looks really good. The Headless Horseman, you know, the effects look great. He's riding this sort of white horse with sort of glowing red eyes, and the kind of the headless effects that they've done on that look really good. It's obviously a TV show, so there's only so much they can sort of show in regards to sort of gore and violence, but I think they sort of probably push the envelope as far as they can on this sort of channel that obviously it's airing on. For this TV show, still fairly violent. In this pilot episode, at least, you've got a couple of decent guest stars. As I mentioned, you've got Clancy Brown. You've got, I think his name is John Chu, who played Zulu in Star Trek, the more recent ones, the J.J. Abrams films. He's in it as well for this pilot episode. But you've also got, I forget the actor's name, but the guy who plays the police captain. He's a sort of actor I've seen in a few things as well. Now, the two leads, Ichabod and Mills, I haven't seen those guys before, but they both came across very well. They had a decent sort of chemistry. I did like some of the exchanges between them. Anyway, so I really enjoyed it. I'm definitely going to be checking out some more episodes. So I'm hoping it sort of carries on with the quality that we've seen on this one. So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. What did you think of it? Leave me a comment. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.